Starmer mentioned that his talks with President Biden in Washington were comprehensive and productive, but did not confirm whether he had convinced the U.S. to allow Ukraine to fire long-range missiles into Russia. President Zelensky has consistently called for permission to use these weapons on targets across the Russian border, arguing that it's the only way to end the conflict. Our political editor, Chris Mason, reports from the White House, "I believe the coming weeks and months could be pivotal. What does President Biden make of Russia's threats against the West? It appears not much." This is the Blue Room of the White House, where the President, the Prime Minister, and their teams held talks for about an hour and a half. The war in Ukraine dominated the conversation. After the meeting, Starmer wouldn't confirm whether he had succeeded in persuading the President that authorizing Ukraine to fire Western missiles at Russia was a good idea. Instead, he said, "There's only one reason we're having these discussions, and that's because Putin has illegally invaded Ukraine. The quickest way to resolve this lies in Putin's actions, as it is up to him to end this conflict. We're standing united with Ukraine, which has the right to self-defense, and we've aligned with our allies here in the U.S. and across NATO. That unity is extremely important." These long-range Anglo-French missiles are what Ukraine is eager to use against Russia. The UK has been making the case to its allies that this request should be approved, as these missiles rely on American satellite systems for functionality. One might wonder why the Prime Minister is so keen to visit a US president who will be out of office in a few months. His answer: there are urgent matters that need addressing now, including the missile issue. President Biden has been skeptical about allowing Ukraine to fire these missiles into Russia, citing concerns about the potential dangers. This illustrates the reality of the ongoing war in Ukraine, a nation desperate for continued assistance, while its allies weigh the best course of action and the potential costs involved. Chris Mason, BBC News, Washington. Let's get more on this from our North America correspondent, Jenny Kumar. Although we haven't received much detail about the discussions, a brief statement was released. It stated that the Allies reaffirmed their unwavering support for Ukraine and expressed deep concern over Iran and North Korea supplying Russia with lethal weapons, as well as China's support for Russia's defense industry. As we saw in Chris's report, Starmer gave a short interview following the meeting. He declined to comment on whether any decision had been made to lift restrictions on allowing Western missiles to strike deep into Russia, emphasizing that the discussion was strategic rather than focused on specific capabilities. For the Western allies, it's a delicate balance, deciding between the risks of inaction versus action and considering how Russia might respond. Jenny Kumar, Washington. Earlier, we heard from Vlodar Karkos, a former Lithuanian foreign minister and former EU ambassador to Russia. I asked him for his thoughts on Putin's red lines concerning missile use. Well, first of all, it's crucial to remember, and I've been emphasizing this since 2013 during the Crimea conflict and the occupation of eastern Ukraine, that Russia started this war by invading Ukraine and violating international red lines. Putin is trying to present Russia as a victim to both international and Russian audiences, but we must reject that narrative. I asked him about the role of an ambassador when this war of words develops between Russia and the blocs they represent. There are two key aspects. First is public communication, which is difficult in Russia due to state media control. Still, I used to participate in interviews and talk shows even if they were orchestrated, and I'd always stress that Russia bears full responsibility for violating international law, attacking Ukraine's innocent and peaceful population. At the same time, I communicated with member states and allies, like the United States and the United Kingdom, which is no longer part of the European Union. It's crucial to fully support Ukraine, including providing long-range weaponry, if we want to see Russia fail. Before any negotiations, de-escalation is inevitable, so Putin must feel the consequences and pain of his actions.